what you were supposed to have done for homework. Some of you did it here. And I'm just going to show you the key here. Okay. So if you go to page 40, look at that. I will explain that in a bit. I'm just going to close the blinds here. Okay, so this is, can I just say something about this? Right, like there's no table here for this question on page 40. So you're given the actual scores, right, that you got on the 4 tests. So if each test would be worth the same percentage, in other words, if it wasn't weighted, you simply add the 4 divided by 4, you get 78% average. However, if every single test had a weight associated to it, so the first test worth 10%, then the second and third, right, these 2 tests are both worth 30. Sorry, not 30, but 20. And then the last test was worth 50. Okay, then it changes. So you basically take the score of the first one times the weight, score of the second one times its weight, and so forth. And notice that I checked, like both of these technically were percentages, but this one here adds up to 100. So I know I have to divide by 100 at the end. Okay, so this maybe is worth saying, hey, that's why that went there. You add it all up. You can tell that that last test had the heaviest weight and the highest score. It's the biggest number that is being added, so you know that's going to have a big impact. And so here we go. You get 80.9, so feel free to just go 2 decimals there. So scored the highest on the 4th test, which is also the weightiest. That's a weird, I don't know if that's in proper English, but I used it, so there. And then next page 41. So you don't have to show me this long formula here. You can honestly just like multiply across like this, write down the numbers right under the table, show me that you're adding it. I think what I would want you to state is this at the end, right? Like what your sum is divided by 100. And I would also like to see these numbers here. I don't think it ever really happens that someone doesn't, but I want to see some work on this paper, right? When you do it. And watch this, I checked to see if it added to 100%, which means, right, I'm going to have to divide ultimately. And you might think this is so redundant, why you keep saying it, because you will have instances where you have percentages and they don't add up to 100. And then you're like, oh, what now? I can't divide just by 100. I have to decide. Okay, so I'll show you that today. But this is supposed to be $392 per customer. Let's just figure out how I came up with my units there. What am I multiplying every time? What 2 things are being multiplied? Right, so dollars times percentages, right? And when you divide by 100, that actually belongs to the percentage row here. You're dividing by percentages. So if you turned all of these to decimals right away, then there is no need to do it at the end. No, because you're doing the same thing essentially. Here you're doing it in one shot. Here you're doing it. No, that. Just make sure you don't divide by 100 again. Yeah, it's a good one. So that's right. This is why we know it's dollars per customer, because this is what remains. Okay. All right. Now come with me. I will take you a little bit further. The backwards I'm going to leave for now. So let's put a star there. Okay. So you know it's like we're coming back to it. We're not forgetting about it. I want you to go to 44 right now. You're with me, right? I'm just going to show you. You don't have to follow me. But at the very beginning, when we started to talk about weighted mean, this is on page 39, just letting you know, I told you, hey, we're gonna have two different weighted mean scenarios. To be honest, the textbook, like the original textbook I used to use, they would mix it all up. Like there's no distinction, but I like to distinguish between them because I tackle them differently. And I think it's good for you to see that pattern. It'll make your lives a lot easier. So now we're going to focus on repetition. Okay, so let's go back to 44, as I said. So let's tackle this one. So I'm going to say, right, involving repetition. Okay, so multiple items. And I will give you a very, very basic example to begin. Okay, to start off. So weighted mean calculations can be used in another situation where there is repetition. Okay, I'm just going to underline that. Repetition of entries in the data set. The end result is the same as the arithmetic mean, but the calculation is easier. Can I highlight that? This is very important. The end result is the same as the arithmetic mean, but the calculation is easier. Who doesn't like easier, right? We all like it to be easier if possible. So I made this one up. The following values represent the number of shoes sold over an 18-day period. The data has been arranged. Okay, so show two ways of calculating the average. So here's my example. This is why I'm doing that. So method one, right? I would just say this: mean is sum divided by number of values that you're considering. So let's add it all up, okay? Grab your calculators. It's good practice, right? Your fingers, like video gaming, you're just using your thumbs, right? Now you're using your other fingers. Hey, right? So I'm going to go 3 plus 3 plus 3. And then how many fours are there? 6 fours plus 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry. There are 6 fours, right? So 4 plus 4, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'll go 7, 7 plus how many nines? 7 nines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 110 I got. Did you get the same? I was just pretending, Mr. Erickson. I didn't really do it. Some of you are like, does he have eyes on the side of his head? So 6.11 shoes on average sold. Okay? Would you say that this is tedious? It's a lot of work, right? You think we could do it a little faster? Do you see the repetition happening here? Yeah. So this is my second method. Method 2. Weighted mean. Weighted mean. I just had a maybe an idea here. I'm just gonna tell you there are 3 of those. There are 6 of those. 2 of those. And 7 nines. Okay, so these are the number of instances they show up. So watch this. Weighted mean. We go, the number 3 shows up 3 times, correct? Then we go plus. The number 4 shows up 6 times, right? Then the number 7 shows up 2 times. and the number 9 shows up 7 times. To be honest, it doesn't matter if you flip-flop these, right? It doesn't matter if you went 6 times 4 instead of 4 times 6. It really doesn't matter. Okay. Is over. What are we going to divide this by? 18, right? Because we are, at the end of the day, we're considering 18 numbers. So watch what I'm going to do here. Just look up. I'm not just going to write 18. I'm going to actually go, we considered 3 and 6 and 2 and 7 values, right? We considered the number of values that are there. So weighted mean, let's do this in our heads. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 6 is 24. 7 times 2 is 14. 9 times 7, 63. Yeah. Over 18. You know we're going to get the same answer. I hope. I hope you see where this is going. If I add up these numbers, I get 110 again. And you're like, this wasn't easier, Mr. Dirksen. This was actually more work. Trust me, we're gonna do it a lot faster down the road. Because can you imagine? Let me just write this down. I can't do two things at the same time. Can you imagine I give you like 100 nines? Like let's say I give you a list with 100 nines, and there you go, 9 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9. Wait a minute. Was I at 49 or did I do 50? Oh, right? Like it's just, this would be the way to go, right? So this is the weighted mean method. They give you the same answer, but this is easier, faster, okay? I will say faster to do it this way, okay? So I'm not gonna, especially if there's repetition. If there's no repetition, then you probably wanna just stick with this method. But if there is repetition, obviously you want to consider the weighted mean method. And you're like, why is it weighted mean if it gives you the same answer? It's because it still applies, the same 3 rules apply. Remember the 3 steps for weighted mean? Are you with me? What are the 3 steps again? Multiply, add, divide. That's still going to apply, guys. We're going to do some multiplication, we're going to do some addition, and we're going to have to divide by something. Okay, so those still apply. So let's try an example that you may encounter on the province. Like you're almost guaranteed to have a weighted mean question. Like I could put money down that you're gonna have a weighted mean question. The other questions I can't put money down on all the other ones, but this one seems to be quite consistent. So I want to do the steps one more time. Steps. Multiply, add, divide. And there's just one added level of difficulty here, which is determining what units is my answer in. That's what you're going to have to figure out, okay? Remember the colors? I used orange for multiplication. I used green for adding. And you know what? If you, whatever colors you have, you go with them. I don't care. So you have number of students and hours they studied. So let's first analyze this table. What is it trying to tell us? Well, we're told that 120 students are studying 3 hours a week, or study 3 hours for an exam, let's say. Right? What does it say here? It shows the average number of hours studied per week. Sorry, it does say hours per week. Calculate the average number of hours studied per week. That is important. What is it asking you? Calculate the average number of, you see this one here? Hours. That's what they want. Okay. Let's underline that because that's going to be important in a bit. So can you imagine you're collecting data and you're collecting 120 instances of the number 3. You're like, how many hours did you study? 3. Okay. How about you? 3. Okay. 120 times. That's where the repetition comes in. 280 students studied 4 hours, 95, and then 30 studied 6. So you have, right, number 6 shows up 30 times, number 5 shows up 90 times. I think you get the picture there. If all else fails, if you just do this, the first step is multiply. Let's do that. Multiply them across like that. So you have to go across categories. Okay, that's the trick here. Two numbers that are side by side or one on top of the other, depending on how the table is presented to you. So let's figure out what this is. Let's just have the numbers here. 3 times 120, I think we got that, meant 360, right? 360, 280 times 4, 20. 9 times 5 is 45, so 90 times 5 would be 450. And then 30 times 6, that'd be 180. And so let's write this down here. Weighted mean. When you're multiplying things, it's weighted mean, guys. Okay? Okay, let's add it. So I'm going to go 360 plus 1120 plus 450 plus 180. And I will use green for the plus symbols, right? Because I'm adding. And here is the kicker. This is where weighted mean is with repetition is different than the other one. There are no percentages, right? So we can't add up and see if it adds up to 100. It's not as easy as that, okay? What are we multiplying? Pay close attention to this step, okay? What are we multiplying? Let's do a little aside here. Unit analysis. Write that down on the side. What am I multiplying? I'm multiplying students. Yes, students times hours. What do I want? What do I want to remain between students and hours? What do I want to stay? Watch here. Then it says calculate the average number of hours. So you want this to stay, correct? So what would you have to divide by here to get rid of students? Yeah, students. We don't want to get rid of you guys, but you know what I mean within this context. There. So we have to divide by the number of students. So you get, I hope you understand, right? You want hours to remain. So I'm going to highlight, I'm going to grab whatever I used for this part and just say, hey, I want that to stay. And I apologize, it's a little crowded there, but you need to do your unit analysis with this one. So let's add up our number of students here. So basically you want to add it up. So 120 and 280, that's 400. 490 plus 30, 520. $520 students, and I'm gonna go, no, I won't highlight that. I'm just gonna write this down here. Maybe I'll use a red pen because it's important to figure that out, right? 520 students, I'm gonna divide my sum by. And that is the dividing part, correct? So I'm gonna, whatever I used for dividing up here in my color-coded steps. Some of you probably like, I can't handle your highlighting anymore, Mr. Dixon. I've had it. I get it, but I think it just comes alive. So I'm going to add up my top there. That's 2110 divided by 520. Right. So last but not least, an average of 4.0, what would that round to? 4.06 hours. Okay, that is your final answer. Does it make sense? Look at what I've received. I've got anywhere between 3 and 6, correct? Your answer should be somewhere in between there. If you had less than 3, you're like, wait a minute, how's that possible? Because 3 is like the minimum. I'm sure they didn't ask all students, right? The ones that didn't answer probably didn't study, so they didn't even just saying. But let's say you're making a mistake. You said, okay, I'm gonna divide by 3 and 4, that's 7, and 5 is 12, and 6 is 18. I'm gonna divide 2110 by all of the hours, which is 18. Let's say you did that, and your answer is 117 hours. Wait a minute, that can't be, right? Maybe Mr. Dirksen, maybe he studied that many hours. I'm just kidding. I never studied that many hours. But, right? So you got to kind of use common sense sometimes and let that guide you if you forget any other parts. So I think you are well prepared, and maybe I might have to help you out, but I would like you to work 45 to 47, and I'm just going to give it a quick peek. Yeah, you're fine. However, there are no, you don't have tables there really. Yeah, once you get to 47, there's a table. And you're like, well, how? I can't do it, Mr. Dirksen. There's no tables. I can't do it. Make a table if you need to. Make a table if you need to. So let me tell you what I mean by that. You ready? You're coming with me, right? So let's go to 45. 45, let's say. And you have this question here, right? Glenna earned 2 tips of 6, 3 tips of 8, 3 of 10, 6 of 12. You should see a table. Watch this. I'm going to make one for you. Number of tips and amount in dollars. Let's make a table. If you want the table, here's your table. So 2 tips of $6. 3 tips of $8. 3 tips of $10. 6 tips of $12. You see it? You see the table now? So some of you might have to do make a table if you need it, but it's not necessary, okay? And you go from there. So take it from there. If you're still doing 40 to 41, let's say you finish everything today, you come back to that. I will see how you guys do. If I feel like